Welcome, dear friend, to this quiet corner of our shared world. Thank you, with all our hearts, for choosing to rest your mind and spirit here with us for a while. It is our deepest hope that the gentle story we have prepared for you will be a comforting companion, a soft and steady hand to guide you toward the peaceful sleep you so richly deserve, helping you to drift away with a feeling of profound ease. If, as our journey unfolds, you find a quiet contentment in this tale, we would be so grateful if you would, just before you set your device aside, show your appreciation by liking this story, subscribing to our channel, and perhaps leaving a gentle comment of your own. Before we begin our slow pilgrimage to a vale of ancient stones, where the air smells of cool earth and the ground glows with a soft light, we shall first take a moment to breathe together, settling into comfort. Now, let us invite a true and gentle ease into our bodies. Find your most comfortable position, allowing yourself to settle in the way a dry leaf finds its final perfect resting place on the soft ground. Feel the comforting weight of your blankets, a soft pressure that reassures and holds you, and let your pillow become a perfect cradle for your head, a small, safe harbor in the quiet of the night. This is your time, a gentle space carved out just for you, where all the small noises and hurried thoughts of the day can finally be given permission to soften and drift away. Let a quietness settle in your heart, as deep and as ancient as the silence held within the great stones of the vale. Let us now share a slow, calming breath, a breath as unhurried as the turning of seasons in a forgotten land. Gently draw the air in through your nose, feeling it fill you with a clean, cool, and comforting presence, as if you were breathing in the pure air of the vale itself. Then, release it just as slowly through your mouth with a soft, quiet sigh of release. With each new breath, you might feel your body softening, your shoulders releasing their hold, your hands uncurling in your lap, much like the petals of a night-blooming flower. Imagine the clean, mineral scent of cool, damp stone and the faint, sweet perfume of glowing flora, allowing these gentle sensations to guide you ever deeper into a state of peace. And if, as is sometimes their way, your thoughts begin to wander, moving like dust motes in a stray sunbeam, that is perfectly all right. There is no need to trouble yourself. Simply notice them, without judgment, as you might notice a cloud drifting slowly across a wide sky. And then, with the utmost kindness to yourself, gently guide your attention back to the steady, quiet rhythm of your own breath. There is nothing more for you to do now, nothing to solve or hold. All that remains is to listen and to allow the gentle current of the story to carry you toward the deep and restorative rest that awaits. Let the world outside this moment fade, and let us begin. Chapter 1. The First Stillness. One must be taught, it seems, to appreciate the subtleties of a path's end. For Phelan, a person whose life had been a gentle study in the charting of quiet places, this particular path was less a track upon the earth, and more a slow dissolving of the world they knew. The road, which had been a companion of sorts, had long since given way to a deer trail, and the trail, in turn, had softened into a mere suggestion, a parting in the tall, sweet-smelling grasses. It was a journey made not of miles, but of layers of quiet, each one deeper and more profound than the last. With every step, the distant hum of civilization grew fainter, replaced by sounds of a much kinder and more ancient sort, primary sound was that of Phelan's own making, the soft crush of dry leaves and twigs under their worn leather boots, a rhythmic sound that seemed a polite and humble announcement of their presence. This gentle crunch was accompanied by the clean, sharp scent of pine that the disturbed needles released into the cooling air. Above, a canopy of slender, pale-barked trees formed a high ceiling, and their leaves, already touched by the season's turn, rustled with a sound like the turning of 1,000 tiny, paper-thin pages. It was, Phelan thought, as if they were walking through a library of whispers, each one telling a story of the wind and the sun. The air itself began to change, losing the dry, sun-baked quality of the open fields and taking on a noticeable coolness, a dampness that spoke of deep shade and sheltered earth. It carried a new scent, one that was both grounding and wonderfully clean. It was the smell of rich, dark soil that had not been disturbed for a very long time, mingled with the distinct mineral fragrance of stone that has been washed by centuries of gentle rain. Phelan paused, closing their eyes and breathing it in, feeling it settle something deep within their spirit, a balm for a weariness they had not fully acknowledged until this very moment. The path, such as it was, led them toward a narrow passage between two great, unassuming boulders, their surfaces covered in a soft, verdant cushion of harmless growth. It felt like a doorway, the one made by nature's patient hand. The air that flowed through this opening was cooler still, a gentle current that seemed to beckon them forward. As Phelan stepped through, the world changed completely. The close comfort of the trees fell away, and before them lay a space that felt both vast and intimately contained, a secret held in the palm of the land. It was a vale, a perfect shallow bowl of the most vibrant green turf, looking as soft and inviting as a well-loved blanket. And standing within this gentle basin, arranged in a loose and thoughtful circle, were the stones. They were colossal, far larger than the two that had guarded the entrance, monoliths of a dark, deep basalt, whose surfaces were worn impossibly smooth, as if polished by the slow hand of time itself. They did not loom or menace. Instead, they possessed a profound and quiet presence, like patient, sleeping giants who had been waiting for this very moment, under this very sky. Phelan stood at the edge of the vale, feeling a sense of arrival so complete it was almost overwhelming. It was not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a deep and welcome stillness. The silence here was of a different quality, not an absence of sound, but a presence. It was a rich, textured quiet, woven from the distant sigh of the wind over the vale's high ridge, the hum of a few determined insects, and the immense, unspoken weight of the stones themselves. It was a silence that did not demand to be filled, but rather invited one to join it. There was an unspoken permission in the air, a gentle allowance to simply be. Phelan took a slow, deep breath, the cool, clean air filling their lungs, and felt the last, tight knot of worldly hurry begin to unravel within their chest. They took a tentative step from the shade of the entrance and onto the soft turf, the ground yielding slightly under their weight with a welcoming spring. Here, with the great, dark stones standing as gentle witnesses and the soft sky arching above, Phelan felt they had found not just a place on a map, but a quiet harbor for the soul. And in the new-found stillness of the vale, all was well. The light within the vale was a thing of beauty in itself, soft and diffused, as if strained through a fine sieve of cloud, that was visible only from within this protected space. There were no harsh edges, no stark contrasts of light and shadow. The sun, though high in the sky, seemed to lend its warmth and brightness in a more gentle, considerate manner here. The dark, polished surfaces of the great basalt monoliths did not reflect the light with a sharp glare, but seemed to drink it in, their sheer faces holding a soft, subtle sheen that spoke of their great age and density. It was a light that encouraged quiet contemplation, a light to rest one's eyes and one's heart within. Chapter 2. A Quiet Welcome. A pull as gentle and persistent as a slow tide drew Phelan toward the nearest of the great stones. It stood a little apart from its brethren, its immense form seeming to offer a silent, solitary invitation. As Phelan drew closer, the sheer scale of it became more apparent, its smooth, dark flank rising up to dwarf them. Yet there was no sense of being diminished by its presence. Rather, there was a feeling of being sheltered, as if they stood beside something of immense and benevolent strength. The air around the stone was cooler, and the soft, springy turf grew right up to its base, undeterred by the colossal weight it supported. Ahazad. Hesitantly, as if approaching a sleeping creature of great dignity, Phelan reached out a hand. The moment their fingertips made contact with the surface, a cascade of sensation, subtle yet profound, traveled up their arm. The stone was not rough, as one might expect. It was impossibly, wonderfully smooth, the texture of a river pebble magnified 1,000 times over, polished by eons of wind and rain into a near-perfect finish. It was cool to the touch, a deep, resonant coolness that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the rock, a coolness that felt clean and profoundly ancient. It was a texture that seemed to absorb not just the day's light, but all the small anxieties of the one who touched it. It was in this quiet moment of communion that Phelan first became aware of another presence. They had been so consumed by the sensory wonder of the stone that they had not heard the softest of footsteps on the turf. Turning, Phelan saw a figure standing a respectful distance away, a woman whose movements held the same unhurried, natural grace as the clouds drifting slowly over the vale. Her hair was the color of dried flax, and her simple homespun tunic was the gentle green of new leaves. She held a steaming ceramic cup in her hands, its surface a warm, earthy brown. She offered a smile that was small and gentle, yet it seemed to fill the space between them with a profound sense of welcome. "I am Maeva," she said, her voice not much louder than the rustle of leaves, yet perfectly clear in the vale's deep quiet. "You have found your way. That is a good thing." There was no surprise in her tone, no questioning of Phelan's purpose, only a simple, kind acceptance. She stepped forward and offered the cup, its warmth a pleasing contrast to the coolness of the stone. "For your journey, it helps one to settle." Phelan took the cup, their fingers wrapping around the smooth, warm ceramic. The steam that rose from it carried the scent of sweet grasses, a hint of mint, and the comforting aroma of warm, fertile soil. They took a small, tentative sip. The liquid was warm and soothing, a simple infusion of herbs that seemed to taste of the vale itself, of its quiet and its clean air. It was a taste that spoke of simple comforts and gentle care, and it spread a pleasant warmth through Phelan's chest, a welcome counterpoint to the deep, abiding cool of the stone at their back. Lasintasan hatazao. They are patient listeners, Maeva said softly, her gaze resting on the great monolith. It was all the explanation she offered, and Phelan understood, with a certainty that required no further words, that it was all the explanation that was needed. The stones were not just geological features, they were companions in this quiet place. Maeva's presence was not that of a guardian or an owner, but of one who shared space, who understood its rhythms and its gentle temperament. Her welcome was not an intrusion, but an extension of the Vale's own silent greeting. After a few more moments of shared, comfortable silence, Maeva gave a slight, respectful nod and turned, her bare feet making no sound as she moved away across the soft turf, disappearing behind another of the great stones. She left behind the gift of the warm drink, and more importantly, the gift of solitude renewed, a solitude that now felt less like being alone and more like being in quiet, accepted company. Phelan leaned their shoulder against the vast, smooth flank of the monolith, feeling its solid, cool presence through the fabric of their tunic. Phelan stayed there for a long while, sipping the warm, sweet-tasting infusion and letting their senses slowly attune to the deep peace of the place. The coolness of the stone was a constant, grounding presence at their back. The warmth of the cup was a gentle comfort in their hands. The soft, springy turf was a cushion beneath their feet. The air was filled with the clean scent of earth and stone, and the only sounds were the distant sigh of the wind and the slow, steady beat of Phelan's own heart, which seemed to be finding a new, more peaceful rhythm. In this quiet corner of the world, a simple welcome had been offered and received, as soft and as natural as the settling of dusk. Chapter 3. The Language of Warmth. The days that followed were not measured by tasks accomplished or distances traveled, but by the slow, gentle passage of light across the valley floor. Phelan discovered that the Vale was a world unto itself, with its own subtle climates and quiet events. There was the morning, when a soft mist would often cling to the base of the stones, making them appear to float just above the green turf. And there was the afternoon, when the sun, at its apex, would pour a gentle, liquid gold into the basin, a warmth that seemed to have real substance and a comforting weight. It was this warmth that became Phelan's new language, a form of communication more ancient and intuitive than any spoken word. They began to spend their time with a single stone, the one Maeva had called a patient listener. They would arrive in the cool of the morning and place a hand upon its surface, feeling the deep, residual chill of the night held within its core. This coolness was a clean, pure sensation, like touching the memory of starlight, and it felt as though it was drawing the lingering heat and hurry from Phelan's own body, leaving them calm and centered. As the sun climbed higher, a slow and wondrous transformation would begin. Phelan, sitting with their back resting against the great monolith, could feel the precise moment the first direct rays of sunlight touched the top of the stone. A subtle shift would travel down the basalt, not a sudden heat, but a slow, seeping tide of gentle warmth. It was a warmth that felt alive, and Phelan learned to follow its progress, to trace its path down the immense surface with an outstretched palm. It was like listening to a slow story being told, a story of the sun's daily greeting to the ancient earth. Lying on the soft turf with their cheek pressed against the now sun-warmed base of the stone, Phelan discovered an even deeper layer of this thermal language. The warmth was not uniform. There were pockets of more intense heat, tiny areas that held the memory of a particularly bright and cloudless noon from seasons or even centuries past. And there were fleeting spots of coolness, where the shadow of a bird's wing had once fallen, or where a single fat raindrop from a brief summer shower long ago had left its ghostly, cool impression. It was an almanac, written not in ink, but in temperature. Phelan would close their eyes, their hands spread flat against the warm, smooth surface, and simply feel. They felt the steady, unwavering warmth of 1,000 cloudless days, a deep and reassuring heat that spoke of reliability and endurance. They felt the gentle, dappled warmth left by the shadows of leaves from trees that had long since returned to the soil. It was a history of peace, a chronicle of countless, quiet, gentle days communicated directly to the senses. It bypassed the chattering mind and spoke directly to the heart, a profound reassurance that peace was the world's natural, underlying state. In this way, Phelan's own thoughts began to slow, their inner monologue quieting as they became more engrossed in the simple, profound act of feeling. The need to name, to categorize, to understand with the intellect fell away. It was replaced by a simple, accepting awareness. The warmth of the stone was not a puzzle to be solved, but a gift to be received. It was a direct, sensory connection to the deep, slow, peaceful time of the Vale, a rhythm so different from the hurried pace of the world they had left behind. Maeva would sometimes pass by, her presence as unobtrusive as a shadow. She would see Phelan resting against the stone, their eyes closed, and a look of deep, untroubled contentment on their face. She would smile her small, knowing smile, a recognition of someone who was learning to listen, not with their ears, but with their whole being. She would leave a small bundle of sweet-smelling herbs or a piece of fruit at a respectful distance, a simple, unspoken gesture of encouragement and companionship. As the afternoon light began to soften, the stone would begin its slow release of the day's warmth. It did not cool quickly, but sighed its heat back into the evening air, a slow and generous exhalation. Phelan would remain, feeling the warmth gradually recede, the story of this one particular day coming to its gentle close. They were not just observing the Vale's peace anymore. They were participating in it, feeling its ancient, warm-blooded history flow into them, and leaving their own small, fleeting warmth upon the stone in return. Chapter 4. The Resonant Hum. As the sun dipped below the high western ridge of the Vale, the world was painted in the softest, most delicate colors. The sky, directly overhead, was a deepening shade of periwinkle, while the horizon was a breathtaking wash of pale rose and gentle lavender. It was a time of transition, a quiet pause between the day and the night, and it was in this magical liminal hour that the veil revealed another of its profound secrets. The soft glow that began to emanate from the ground was the first sign, a gentle and wondrous illumination that seemed to grow directly from the earth. The source was the countless small, unassuming plants that Phelan now knew as solace petals. All day, they had been like any other ground-covering foliage, a soft carpet of green. But now, as the daylight faded, their pale, translucent petals began to unfurl, and from within each one a soft, steady, golden white light began to shine. It was not a bright or dazzling light, but a gentle, reassuring glow, as if 1,000 tiny, captured stars were being carefully released. They illuminated the grassy paths between the monoliths, creating a safe and serene landscape that felt both earthly and enchanted. The light was accompanied by the faintest of scents, a clean, cool fragrance like fresh night air. It was then that the second secret began. It started not as a sound, but as a feeling, a subtle vibration that rose up from the ground itself. Phelan, sitting with their back against the now cool stone, felt it first through the soles of their boots, a low, deep thrumming that seemed to make the very air shiver. It was the hum of the stones, a sound so deep and resonant that it was felt more than it was heard. It was the collective voice of the monoliths, a sonorous, ancient chorus that spoke of the deep, slow turning of the world. Phelan closed their eyes and leaned fully into the sensation. The vibration traveled up their spine, a gentle, rhythmic pulse that seemed to find every small knot of lingering tension and soothe it away. It resonated in their chest, a deep and steadying thrum that felt like a powerful, gentle heartbeat, and Phelan could feel their own heart slowing, effortlessly synchronizing with this ancient, peaceful rhythm. It was a sound that bypassed thought, a lullaby for the very bones, a deep and profound song of stillness. The hum was not monotonous. It had a subtle texture, with waves of resonance that would swell and recede like a slow, deep tide. At times it felt as though one particular stone was singing a deeper note, its voice joining the chorus for a moment before blending back into the whole. Phelan imagined the sound traveling deep into the earth, a conversation between the stones and the bedrock of the world, a communication far older than any living thing. To be allowed to sit and listen to it felt like an immense privilege, a gift of profound trust from the Vale itself. In the gentle glowing light of the solace petals, with a deep, calming hum vibrating through their entire being, Phelan felt a sense of peace so complete it was almost liquid. The last vestiges of their inner chatter, the small, persistent worries and plans of the conscious mind, simply dissolved. There was no room for them in the presence of this immense and gentle sound. There was only the feeling of the cool stone at their back, the sight of the soft light on the ground, and the deep, pervasive hum that held them in a state of perfect, thoughtless tranquility. Phelan's breathing became slow and deep, each inhalation drawing in the cool, clean air of the Vale, each exhalation a soft sigh of release. There was no effort involved, no conscious attempt to meditate or find calm. The calm was simply there, a property of the air, the light, and the sound. It was an environment of pure, undiluted peace, and all one had to do was be still and allow it to saturate them, to fill all the empty spaces within until they too were part of the quiet, resonant whole. The experience was like being submerged in a warm, gentle sea of pure calm. The hum was the current, the soft light was the phosphorescence of the deep, and Phylon was floating, weightless and secure, held safely in the heart of the Vale's deep, sonorous peace. This, they understood, was the true magic of the place, not a magic of grand spells or transformations, but a slow, gentle, and irresistible invitation to return to a state of profound and simple rest. Chapter 5. An Anchor of Calm. The distinction between one day and the next began to soften, the edges blurring into a seamless continuum of gentle moments. Time in the Vale did not march forward in a straight line, but seemed to pool and eddy, measured only by the slow arc of the sun and the nightly emergence of the solace petals' glow. Phylon no longer felt like a visitor, a temporary resident in this quiet land. A slow, gentle, and profound change had taken place, and they now felt a sense of belonging so complete that it was as natural and as effortless as breathing the clean, cool air. Phelan's senses, once accustomed to the clamor and sharp details of the outside world, had recalibrated themselves to this more subtle language. They could now distinguish the scent of the dark, damp earth near the base of the stones from the lighter, sweeter scent of the turf in the Vale's sunlit center. They could feel the subtle shift in the air pressure that heralded one of the Vale's brief, gentle sun showers, long before the first drop fell. Their world had become richer, deeper, and infinitely more peaceful, all by learning to pay attention to the small, quiet things. The great stones were no longer just features of the landscape. They were familiar companions, each with its own subtle personality communicated through its unique thermal signature. Phylon knew which stone held the morning sun the longest, its surface a comforting warmth deep into the afternoon. They knew which one offered the deepest, most refreshing coolness on a warm day, and which one's hum seemed to have the most soothing resonance in the evening. They would wander between them, resting a hand on each in greeting, a silent, affectionate gesture between old and trusted friends. One afternoon, as Phylon lay on the soft springy turf, watching a single magnificent white cloud drift across the perfect blue canvas of the sky, Maeva approached. She sat down beside them, her movements making no disturbance, and for a long while they sat in a comfortable, shared silence, simply observing the slow, majestic passage of the cloud. "You have learned the Vale's rhythm," Maeva said at last, her voice a soft murmur. It was not a question, but a simple statement of fact. It is a quiet rhythm, but it is very strong. Phylon considered this, feeling the truth of it in their very bones. The hurried, anxious pulse of the world they had left behind felt like a distant, half-forgotten dream. Here, their own heart had learned to beat in time with the slow warmth of the stones and the deep hum of the earth. "It feels like coming home," Phylon replied, the words feeling utterly true. Maeva simply nodded, her serene smile conveying a perfect and complete understanding. This was the purpose of the Vale, not to be an escape, but a place of deep and gentle homecoming to oneself. There was no grand moment of departure, no final farewell. There was no need. Phylan understood that the peace of the Vale was not something that could only be experienced within its sheltered bowl. By immersing themselves so completely in its stillness, by learning its sensory language of warmth and its resonant lullaby, they had absorbed its peace. It had become a part of them, a deep, quiet pool within their own heart that they could now access wherever they went. The Vale had given them not just a memory of peace, but an anchor of calm. As dusk fell one last time, Phelan sat in the center of the Vale, surrounded by the gentle golden-white glow of the soulless petals. They closed their eyes and felt the deep, familiar hum begin its nightly chorus. The vibration, a comforting, steady presence. They placed a hand over their own heart and felt the slow, strong, peaceful beat that now resided there. They had arrived here seeking quiet, and they had found something far more profound, a stillness that sang. With a final slow breath that felt like a contented sigh, Phylan opened their eyes. The Vale was awash in soft light. The great stones stood as silent, benevolent sentinels, and the air was filled with a peace so thick and so real you could almost taste it. Phylan knew they might wander away from this physical place, but they would never truly leave it. The quiet strength of the stones, the gentle light of the petals, and the deep, resonant hum of peace were now woven into the very fabric of their being. And in the quiet Vale, and in the now quiet heart of the traveler, all was well.